Hey everybody, Dr. Jared Skowron from Spectrum Awakening. Let's start talking about allergies and autism and all those fun things. How do we know this is an issue? What can we, how do we investigate it? And what can we do about it? So let's start talking in general. It is allergy season. Spring and fall are obviously the biggest times for environmental allergies, but you can have allergies all year round. Now, all year round allergies can be from food. All year allergies can be from pets. All your allergies can be from mold in your house, or what I see often with a lot of people, and it kind of goes undiagnosed, are allergies to dust mites. Now, dust mites, it kind of gross thinking about it. Those are the little bugs that end up eating all of our dead skin, okay? So we actually get a new skin every month. It's not like a snake, it just doesn't peel off all in one, but we shed our skin, and most of it falls off in our bed, okay? We're spending, a third of our life in bed, and so all that skin just kind of falls off on our sheets, on our pillow, it gets into our pillow, it gets into our mattress, and these little bugs called dust mites eat the skin cells, and if they didn't, the whole planet would be covered in our skin. So I'm glad they're there, but those little bugs called dust mites, when they eat our skin cells, many of us are allergic to them. So a lot of our kids are allergic to dust mites, and luckily that's an easy fix. All you have to do is get a dust mite mattress cover, a dust mite pillow cover, and that problem is mostly solved, which is great. So again, allergies, a lot of us have them, and they can be seasonal like they are now. We've got a lot of pollens and grasses and trees coming out now. A lot of people are having allergies. In fact, we went out this weekend to do some yard work and mow the lawn for the first time, and my daughter comes in and just sneezes and sneezes and sneezes and sneezes and sneezes and sneezes nonstop. It's allergy season. Okay, so again, we can have allergies seasonally, we can have allergies year long from these other things. Let's talk about how allergies create problem behaviors, okay? Because most people think, hey, if I have an allergy, I'm going to have allergy symptoms, which is true. And when we say the word allergy symptoms, most of us are thinking about stereotypical allergy symptoms, including runny nose, watery eyes, sneezing, just like I talked to my daughter about, and sometimes itchy skin. Food allergies, and you eat a strawberry if you're allergic to it, and your lips and around your mouth, become red because you're allergic to it. Okay, so that's kind of stereotypical allergy symptoms. Non-stereotypical allergy symptoms, and let me kind of explain how these work. How do normal allergy symptoms work? Well, I'm allergic to cats. So if there's a cat around me, and that cat's fur or, is getting into the air, I breathe it in, or maybe I touch the cat and then I touch my face and it kind of goes into my, it goes into my system. My immune system looks at that cat dander, okay? And it says, this is not a good guy, this is a bad guy, all right? And we need to attack it. But the way we're going to attack it is by releasing a chemical called histamine. And that histamine connects with certain parts of our body, creates the watery eyes, creates the runny nose, creates the sneezing, sometimes it creates the skin inflammation, all right? So again, we are exposed to something, our body is producing histamine, saves it up, and then releases it when it comes in contact with an allergen. Then that histamine connects with certain parts of the body and creates the symptoms that we don't want, okay? So it's that three-step process to really understand. It's the offender, it's the body's reaction to release histamine, and then histamine connects with our eyes and our nose, etc., and we create the symptoms. All right, so that's kind of stereotypical biology of how our stereotypical allergy reactions occur. Okay, easy enough. Now, let's start thinking about some unstereotypical things, because these are the things that seem unexplained for us, but are really easily explained once we understand human biology. So, another part of the body that reacts to that chemical histamine is actually our stomach. So when histamine connects with our stomach, we release stomach acid. So acid reflux, colic, is also another allergic symptom because it's the histamine connecting with the stomach creating those, okay? So a lot of our kids, excuse me, may wake up, and I see this with the dust mite allergies. You're laying in bed and you're breathing in the dust mite, you're creating that histamine, and it hits your stomach and you're just producing all this stomach acid all night long. You're laying down and you wake up and you're cranky and you're moody and you feel horrible. Sometimes you're burping up, sometimes you're coughing because that acid can get into your lungs and produce a lot of mucus and coughing. So it's, that's how histamine or an allergy can cause a different symptom. It causes the acid reflux, causes the discomfort, especially in the morning. That's when reflux symptoms are the worst. Another place that histamine can affect is the brain, okay? We have histamine receptors in the brain. So again, allergen, histamine released by the body, goes through the body and starts hitting different places, including the brain. Now, histamine in the brain is a massive stimulant, all right? What does it do? It makes us hyper. It makes us agitated. It makes us anxious. It makes us sleepless, okay? So all of a sudden, I may come in contact with an allergen. I may release histamine into my body, and all of a sudden, I can't sleep, or I'm more hyper, or I'm more anxious, okay? Most of my patients that I've talked to this morning here in my office have all been talking about acute OCD, all right? So acute OCD, acute anxiety is really going to cause a lot, it is going to be caused by the histamine that you start to release when you're exposed to any allergens, especially this time of year, seasonal allergies, all right? I hope that all makes sense. So again, kind of break it through. Exposure to an allergen, your body makes histamine, releases histamine, and it can affect a multitude of places. Stereotypical runny nose, watery eyes, sneezing, sometimes a skin rash, sometimes the acid reflux, and sometimes the hyperactivity and the anxiety and the sleeplessness, all right? So you may be exposed to your allergens all year long if you have food or indoor allergens, or just seasonally. But either way, this is a time of year where a lot of times behaviors get worse, and it's because of allergies, because the allergies, again, induce the histamine. Now, let me make this a little more complicated for you, all right? Certain foods. Now, let me step back. Remember, your body makes histamine, okay? You make histamine, and it releases when you're exposed to an allergen. There is histamine in certain foods. So certain foods you may not be allergic to, but they contain histamine. So if you're very sensitive to histamine and you eat it, then all of a sudden you're gonna have the symptoms. It's almost like a lactose intolerance, all right? If I'm reactive to lactose, or if I'm allergic to dairy products, I'm allergic to casein, okay? All of a sudden, I get that in my body and I can't tolerate it, and there's a reaction. So there's other foods I can't tolerate because there's actually histamine in them. Just like the dairy example, there's lactose in it, and my body can't handle it. It can't metabolize it. It can't break it down. So not only do we have to wonder, what am I allergic to? We also may need to monitor different foods that contain high histamine. What are they, you ask? Most common ones are gonna be anything with vinegar or any kind of nightshades. So let me kind of run through that. Things with vinegar, ketchup, all right? Olives, pickles, salad dressing. Those are some common things with vinegar. And again, I mentioned nightshades, which is tomatoes. So again, there's a number 2 hits for ketchup. Ketchup is such a histamine food we should avoid. Tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce, anything with those tomatoes in it, okay? Then things like mushrooms and peppers and eggplants also have some histamine. Those are, of course, are not as common in our kids, but again, anything with tomatoes, any kind of ketchup, all of a sudden it's really ringing bells for a lot of people. You may notice a child's behavior gets worse after you eat those foods. All right, so what do we do? All right, I've got seasonal allergies, or I think I do, or I've got behaviors, or maybe this is a problem with the different foods. How do I confirm it? What testing do I do? All right, here's where I would highly recommend getting conventional allergy tests. Okay, there's 2 ways to do it. You can get a blood draw, okay? Go to the lab, get a blood draw. You can check for your food allergies and your environmental allergies. You've gotta do both. Or you go to an allergist and they do like a million little mosquito bites and they see which ones you're reacting to and allergic to, okay? So get that conventional testing done. Now, please make sure we differentiate between a food allergy and a food sensitivity, all right? Normally when we do that kind of testing, we're looking for an antibody known as IgE, which is a allergy antibody, or the antibody IgG, which is a sensitivity antibody. So you may be sensitive to a food but not allergic to it, or allergic or not sensitive to it, or you could be both. All right. So make sure we're talking about the same thing. This is IgE, allergy-related food and environmental reactions. So that's the testing that I would highly recommend you do. Another thing you can check for is actually testing your histamine level. So again, as I mentioned, our body makes histamine. Okay, histamine is going to be released when we're exposed to our allergens. There's also histamines in food. If you cannot break it down, if you cannot metabolize it, like a lactose intolerance, you will have high histamine levels. So you can check your histamine levels in your blood as a regular blood test or a regular lab and find your histamine levels. If it's high, odds are you're going to start having these symptoms. And again, do you have stereotypical runny nose, watery eyes, eczema kind of symptoms? Do you have the reflux GERD? Do you have the anxiety and the OCD and the insomnia? All right. All really interesting. Shalini just said, Shalini's on every week now. Wow, I give ketchup to my son almost every day and he has seasonal allergies. Makes a lot of sense now. It does. Okay. Now, I'm not saying this is a connectivity with all kids, but it's worth looking at. It's worth taking out the ketchup for a few days. Be like, wow, we had some good days there without ketchup. Or you know what? I took ketchup out. It's the same thing. All right. You just got to go through the process of figuring this out with your kids. All right. And it's not like you can get an allergy test for ketchup and you'll be allergic to it. It's about the histamine contained in the vinegar and in the tomatoes. All right. So let's see. We've talked about how it happens. We've talked about some testing. Let's talk about, well, geez, what the heck am I going to do with it? All right. And then we'll get into the scientific research so you know that I'm just not making this up. I would say there's three major things you can do. Number one, over-the-counter antihistamines. All right, so these are things like Zyrtec, Claritin, and Benadryl. Now, please let me explain something. If you have a very intense histamine intolerance, you cannot handle the antihistamines. So what happens is, let's say your child's having an allergic reaction, you give some Benadryl and you're waiting for them to fall asleep because, hey, Benadryl should knock you out, but all of a sudden you gave the Benadryl and your kid is awake all night. Now that just doesn't make sense on the surface level until you dig deep and understand the biology of it, okay? So antihistamines, Benadryl, Zyrtec, Claritin, those block the histamine receptors for stereotypical allergies, okay? The runny nose, watery eyes, the skin rashes, etc. Those are a certain histamine receptor, and that's what the over-the-counter antihistamines help with, all right? But if you've got all this histamine going through your body and it's starting to connect with, different parts of you, all right? If you take an antihistamine like a Benadryl and it stops the histamine from connecting to this part, then you've got all this extra histamine to connect to the other parts, to the stomach and make more acid, or to the brain and make more hyperactivity and more insomnia. And that's why certain people cannot handle antihistamines because their behavior and sleep gets worse, okay? So if you are one of those people, or if your kid is one of those people, we've got to do something different than the over-the-counter antihistamines. I mean, those will still work, but you need something to stop the histamine from hitting the brain, okay? What we can do is metabolize the histamine, get rid of it, break it down, remove it from the body, okay? Actually, probably before that, what we should do is avoid our allergies. That's why it's really important to test for your allergies, food allergies, environmental allergies, test for what they are and avoid everything that you can, all right? That's step one, stop the exposure, okay? But you gotta get tested for that. Number two, let's use different biomedical natural supplements to metabolize this histamine. The most important one is vitamin C. Okay, vitamin C is going to help metabolize histamine. I know there's a problem with, some people with vitamin C and oxalates. I understand that. The other thing you can use is bioflavonoids. Bioflavonoids is a group of different natural supplements that, again, help metabolize histamine and help reduce these allergy symptoms. And things that most people know, things like quercetin, things like luteolin. There's a lot of bioflavonoids out there, okay? So those are the kind of things you want to use. Also, another thing that's becoming very popular in the supplement world is a digestive enzyme called DAO. So DAO is a digestive enzyme that is specific for histamine. Very similar to if you have, in fact, I have it here on my desk, if you have a lactose intolerance and you take Lactaid, well, it's going to digest the lactose for you, so there's you don't have those symptoms. Same thing with this DAO enzyme. You can take it with a meal and get rid of the histamine in the foods so it doesn't absorb into your body, all right? Those are, again, these DAO enzyme supplements are becoming very popular lately. You can find them over the counter. We are in production of one for Spectrum Awakening supplements. That'll be released probably in the fall or the winter, but again, it's something you can use. So I would highly recommend things like our histamine C capsules, which include vitamin C along with a lot of great bioflavonoids. or our histamine C powder, which again includes vitamin C and some bioflavonoids. I think they are different formulas. I think the capsule is a better formula, but the powder is still pretty good. All right. So those are things. And again, you can also look at this DAO enzyme, which you would take with meals to help remove the histamine before your body absorbs it. So a lot of different things that you can do. Okay, so here's me just talking. Let's take a look at some actual scientific research. All right, so I found a lot of fun studies here. And then after we do these research studies, we'll get to the Q&A. Here's one, is a subtype of autism an allergy of the brain? So all of a sudden, and this is back in 2013, all of a sudden, almost 10 years ago, we're wondering, is autism an allergy? Very interesting, okay? Here's another one that talks about how food allergies, is there a potential link between food allergies and autism? And what it says down here is food allergies, eczema, or asthma is a risk factor for autism, all right? Let's keep going. Here's another one, atopic diseases. And let me stop there and define this. Atopic disease, also known as atopy, is a medical term that indicates allergic symptoms, such as eczema, asthma, and allergies. So atopy or atopic disease includes allergies, asthma, and eczema, which all kind of go together. That's why there's one term. Okay, so atopic disease such as allergies and inflammation in the brain in the creation or pathogenesis of autism. All right, and what have I kind of highlighted here? Talks about there's different inflammatory molecules that are increased in the brain, leading to disruption of neuronal connectivity. So atopic diseases may create a susceptibility in autism and the formation that help target inflammation of the brain. And boy, we need to treat this because that histamine-induced inflammation can be creating part of autism. Is there an association of food allergy and other allergic conditions with autism? Well, this one is published in JAMA. That's the Journal of the American Medical Association. Very well-respected journal. Talks about how autism increased in association with food allergies, respiratory allergies, and skin allergies. All right, so more and more research associating allergies and, of course, the histamine from those allergies that are part of the creation or the worsening of symptoms with autism. All right, here's another one, altered expression of histamine genetics in autism. And I'm going to highlight these. These are genes that, if they are worse, will increase the risk of allergic symptoms, including the allergy phenotype of autism. Those include genes called HNMT, HRH1, HRH2, RH3, HRH4. And I mention those because we're going to see them in another research study. And what does this say here? Significantly altered, the effect of these genes are significantly altered in kids with autism. If you don't know what your genetics are for these, and if you do have kind of different phenotypes and different gene mutations in these, you can test that. You're going to get this in a genetic test called a SNP test, SNP. That's kind of the test that you'll learn about your MTHFR, polymorphism. So if you don't have that yet, you can get a genetic SNP test. Make sure they test for these histamine genes if you're interested. We have a genetic SNP test on our website. It's a cheek swab, so all you do is just swab your kid's cheek and send it in. It'll look at these histamine genes along with MTHFR, along with other genes. So there is a genetic component to it, why certain people are susceptible. All right, here, okay, now we're finally getting into treatments, all right? A lot of these are very similar types of treatments. It is called a histamine H3 receptor antagonist, which helps reduce autism-like behaviors. And what have I highlighted here? Nothing down the bottom. So let me kind of explain this because I've got a few research studies. You can take an over-the-counter antihistamine, Benadryl, Claritin, Zyrtec, to stop the typical, stereotypical symptoms, watery eyes, runny nose, itchy skin, etc. Okay? There are other medications that act the same, but instead of blocking the histamine receptors stereotypically, they stop the histamine function in the brain. So all of a sudden you have a pharmaceutical that improves the anxiety and the sleeplessness and the hyperactivity caused by histamine. Now, we prefer natural things over pharmaceuticals, but it's nice to know that this is how we get the research done. Most of the research is going to be through different pharmaceuticals, which help us understand the biology of what's going on, all right? So we've got a research study that shows, and again, this is February 2021, all right? Really new stuff. And let me sidebar here. How frustrating is it when you go to your physician and your physician says, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. How many times am I showing you week after week after week scientific research, some of it brand new, some of it decades old, about treatments for autism, okay? Please don't listen to anybody who says there's nothing you can do. There's nothing that they know that you can do because they're not interested. If they were interested, they would be reading about it. They would be Googling these same studies that take me nanoseconds to find on a Google search, all right? So stop listening to people that are negative and start believing that there's hope. Let's move on. Sidebar complete. All right. Here's another one. Again, simultaneous blockade of that histamine H3 receptor, as well as affecting and improving your acetylcholine levels, we'll get to that in a minute, alleviates autistic-like behaviors. All right. And again, these are animal studies, but they show how blocking histamine in the brain, as well as improving something else called acetylcholine, is going to help with autism symptoms in animals. Here we have another one. The H3 receptor antagonist and this acetylcholine one alleviates autistic-like behaviors in mouse. I highlighted something here. This significantly improved repetitive and compulsive behaviors and decreased anxiety levels. Okay? How awesome is that? One other research study here on this part. Again, the H3 receptor antagonist and the acetylcholine improves repetitive behavior and neuroinflammation in an animal study of autism. Okay? Let me stop there and talk about these treatments that we're seeing scientifically proved in animal studies. If we can stop histamine hitting the brain or reduce its effect in the brain, and if we can affect this thing called acetylcholine. Now let me explain acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the major chemical of the nervous system that promotes relaxation. Okay? It promotes calmness, promotes relaxation. It's all about this parasympathetic nervous system. It's resting and it's being relaxed. Okay? That's what acetylcholine controls. So if we can stop histamine in the brain and increase acetylcholine effect in the body, that is what these research studies are showing helps with autism in animals, okay? So let's do it for our kids, all right? Now, there is no really good natural alternative for the pharmaceuticals that block histamine in the brain, but what we can do instead is metabolize and digest the histamine, as I kind of talked about before, all right? So that's gonna be with vitamin C and the bioflavonoids in this DAO enzyme. So, and then we can increase acetylcholine levels in the body by adding specific forms of choline, specifically alpha-glycerol phosphoryl choline. I may have that wrong. It's abbreviated APC, okay? These are the things that we're going to do. Let me show you. So here's one. Here's a research study. Again, this is pretty old. This is 1990. So this is a 30-year-old study about the effectiveness of vitamin C helping with histamine lung responsiveness. This was basically a study done in a pulmonologist's office where they had the patient inhale histamine, and it created all these breathing problems as an allergy would. And they did that with people who were given vitamin C and people who were given a placebo. People who took the vitamin C did so much better when it came to their breathing with this pulmonologist's office. Pretty cool. Okay, I'll save that one. I gotta show this. I'm not gonna talk about it. I just have to show it on camera because I'll just show it on camera here. Elevated blood histamine caused by certain things, along with a vitamin C deficiency, may mimic shaken baby syndrome. That's a whole bunch of interesting, all right? Now, this was published in Medical Hypothesis, so it's not like this is a trial, but what I find interesting is, can you get elevated histamine from certain things that you inject into your child, okay? And if that is concurrent, if that elevated histamine can't be removed because of a vitamin C deficiency, are we really activating a histamine inflammation of the brain at that time? It's intriguing, people. It's intriguing. All right, and then lastly with the research study, got a decent amount of studies here, and I got two more. Many of my patients, not all, have something called eosinophilic esophagitis, all right? Not many people have this condition, but a fair number of my patients do. What that is a extremely inflammatory, extremely inflamed esophagus caused by something called eosinophils. Now, eosinophils are the white blood cells that are involved in allergies, Okay, so I believe that eosinophilic esophagitis is due to the allergy process and due to the histamine process. This is going to correlate with the GERD and the reflux and cause a lot of pain, cause a lot of swallowing problems, and other problems along with it. So again, not all kids on the spectrum have this, but a fair number do. I think more than most. This research study, well, this is just a case report, talks about one child who had eosinophilic esophagitis, again, a histamine-related condition, who also had scurvy. Okay, what's scurvy? It's a vitamin C deficiency. They gave this child vitamin C, and the esophagitis improved. Why? Because vitamin C is going to reduce the histamine that's causing the problems. Okay, last but not least, altered esophageal histamine receptor expression in eosinophilic esophagitis. What's a lot of words? What does this mean? Do you remember that H1, H2, H3, H4, and HNMT genes I talked about in the other study? People who have eosinophilic esophagitis have abnormal histamine genetics. So let that sit in for a while, because all of a sudden we are finding connectivity in different medical issues that all are based in excess histamine. So what does that mean? That means we can do a lot to help our kids. So let's take a step back, because we talked about a lot of little details in here. Let's take a step back. Allergies. Okay, it's seasonal allergy time. If your child's having worse behavior, worse mood, worse anxiety, or worse sleep, or worse reflux, or worse morning crankiness, okay, is it due to excess histamine released from the body because of seasonal allergies? Or because of year-long allergies, such as food, such as pets, such as things in the house like mold or dust mites? Okay? Get your allergies tested. Okay? This is IgE conventional testing. It can be through a blood draw, through a regular lab, Quest, LabCorp, your local hospital, Kaiser, whoever, or through the allergist where you get the million little skin pricks. Okay? Get that testing done and take a look. You can also measure blood histamine levels. Get a blood test, check your histamine levels. And avoid what you're allergic to. If you think you have a histamine issue, you may also want to avoid foods that have high levels of histamine. Specifically, vinegar and tomatoes are the most common with kids. That's tomatoes, that's ketchup, that's spaghetti sauce, that's olives, that's pickles. Those are, in my mind, those are big ones, all right? And start taking supplements that will reduce your histamine, okay? Zulika asked a question here, and I'll give some questions. Can you give histamine if you don't have any allergies? Yes. And so let me walk through an example. I was helping a mother and father who had a newborn baby. Baby was probably like 4 months old. Horrible colic, horrible reflux, horrible sleep, okay? And they were breastfeeding at the time. So when you breastfeed, everything that goes in you goes into breast milk, mostly, okay? So what we did is I said, well, let's test your allergies. No allergies, no food allergies, no environmental allergies in the mother, okay? But we checked the mother's histamine levels. Remember, you can check histamine levels as well as allergies in the blood. Her histamine levels off the charts, okay? Where was that histamine coming from? Well, it wasn't coming from an allergy because she didn't have any. In fact, her IgE levels were practically zero, okay? Very, very low. But all that histamine, she had a histamine intolerance, very similar to a lactose intolerance, because when she ate foods with histamine, her histamine levels would go up. That histamine would cross through the breast milk and get into the milk and get into the child, and the histamine itself, not an allergy that the mother or the child has, the histamine chemical itself caused the hyperactivity, caused the reflux, caused the sleeplessness. So with the mother, we were able to give her histamine metabolizing supplements and a low histamine diet, and the child improved. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So again, test your allergies, avoid your allergies, look for dust mite covers, because it's so common, dust mite covers for pillow and mattress, okay? And think about a low histamine diet, and think about the supplements. What supplements are we talking about to reduce the histamine? It's all about vitamin C and bioflavonoids, which we have in our histamine C caps, our histamine C powder. There's other supplements that have vitamin C and bioflavonoids. And just like those other animal studies, reducing the histamine and increasing the acetylcholine can help with a myriad of autism symptoms. Our supplement that has the choline is going to be our superfolinic acid. This has 100 milligrams of the alpha GPC, which is great. So these two together are really going to help those histamine kits. Okay, that's what Shalini just said. How can we test the histamine levels? There's a blood draw. It's a blood test, period. Nothing we have on our website. It's a regular lab, Quest, LabCorp, Hospital, Kaiser. You can check your histamine levels. Okay, I think you can also do a 24-hour urine collection on histamine as well. If you can't do a blood draw, but you can do a 24-hour urine collection, you can do histamine levels too. Again, these regular local labs. So